Ryan said yes, his details, you can grab him afterwards in the break or at the end of the day. But his details we can pass on to anybody if you don't manage to speak to him as well. But thank you very much, that's very interesting. Our next speaker is Janine Parks. Janine came to our last conference back in June in Kidderminster. We met then, we had a discussion about MEES and energy efficiency standards, and then I realised how knowledgeable Janine was. And
well, it was only touched on. I think the guest speaker actually said it in one sentence, and said there are implications for landlords for the new EPC ratings, and that was it. And I was like, you need some information.
So I managed to rope Janine into coming and talking about her expertise and knowledge as well.
Yeah.
So I'm
okay. Set me up because I've actually not stood in front of a pile of 50 landlords before. So just bear with me. Okay.
There we go. The clicker is here.
Clickers are. Yeah. Just that one. Yeah, that's smashing. Okay. Lovely. Right, so there we go. Hello, my name's Janine Parks. Okay. I'm in partnership with my husband Kerry Parks, who's over there, the guy with the beard. And I set up EPOS Services in 2008, just after the EPCs came into fruition, basically. So there's not a lot that Kerry and I don't know about domestic EPCs. So let me just be straight here. We don't do commercial EPCs. We don't do on construction EPCs. Those are a completely different animal. They come under different legislation, and it's just not the same at all. And since 2008, we have successfully carried out more than 6,000 EPCs in our little business. So there's not a lot I haven't seen. There are not many property types I haven't seen, from one bedroom open plan studios right up to multi-million-pound properties. And over time you gather an awful lot of information and knowledge. So I'm going to talk about landlords, MEES and EPCs, and how this links to the new energy rating changes. And I'm just going to stand up and talk in plain English. There won't be any techie speak, okay, that's up to Kerry. But basically you're very welcome at the end to ask me any questions, because I'm not going to tell you what an EPC is. I'm assuming in this room you know what one is, yes? Is there anybody that doesn't? And if they don't, I'm quite happy to stand in the corner and have a bit of an explanation afterwards, okay? So here we go. Yeah. Notes. So basically, if you know what an EPC is, all right, you'll know that the EPC has a rainbow graph on the front, and it gives you the rating of what the property rating was on the day that the assessment was done. Okay. Then it gives you a possible rating of what the rating could be should you decide to carry out the advice measures on the back of the EPC report. So you should all be aware of that. Okay. What I'm going to say to you is that, yeah, it's down on the back. The measures say if you do this, this and this, you will get that rating, okay? Please, please do not rely on that. It won't be accurate. And there's more to an EPC than just what's on the back page. Okay, so a tiny history really, basically. Well, I think we're all aware that EPCs came out in 2007 for all sales and lettings properties, but there was no actual minimum standards until 2018. And at that point, you can see from the graph there that anything that was rated an F or a G, it was then illegal to let out. And if you did in fact let out or didn't have an EPC, there was quite substantial fines for landlords put in place. So the majority of work that Kerry and I work with are, the majority of domestic properties we work with tend to be Ds and Es, because people buy slightly cheaper properties when they're landlords. They might buy an older property. And yeah, there are people that buy new, and if you buy a newer property or something that's only like within 5 years old, then your EPC rating is going to probably be a C anyway, and occasionally you might just get a B1, although it's quite hard to get a B unless it's new. So in between the two blue lines is where we tend to we've been working, and the new legislation will mean that a C69 is where, that's the golden line, a C69 is where you will be safe from the new legislation, okay? We know that when we were first told as energy assessors that obviously the ratings were going to increase, the minimum ratings were going to increase, we thought, oh, fair enough. What we were expecting to happen is that the minimum rating would go from an E to a D. Okay, that sounds reasonable. And for the last 12 to 18 months, when we realised it was going to be a minimum rating of C, I'm telling you that's a big ask. I know this because I know how much work you have to do to jump 2 bands. I couldn't believe it actually. I mean, you and I said, how is this going to happen? Shocking, basically. So that's where your benchmark is, basically. So we all know that the current rating is an E. Okay, the proposed legislation, and Dawn's already touched at this, is that obviously we think it's going to be April 2025 that the new rating is going to be C, and then 28/29 could be a C for existing tenancies. Now, I've been around long enough to see legislation coming. Legislation doesn't always come in when they say it's going to come in, but don't rely on that. And sometimes it can change, the parameters can change. I cannot tell you what's going to happen definitely. I can't do that. But it's absolutely essential that you take some advice now, all right? Because it's going to be considerably more expensive if you wait until 2025 to upgrade your properties in a rush, okay? Right. Yeah, it's a big ask and it's going to be expensive, all right? If you've got a property that is 1950s cavity walls, got roof insulation, etc., it may not be 1950s, 60s, 70s. It won't be as hard to upgrade as something that's 1920s. First World War, solid wall properties, they're the ones that are really going to struggle, all right? So how can we help you? All right, well, we have been helping landlords. It is essential, number one, you can't just hand me your EPC and say, right, Janine, if I do what it says on that back page, I'm going to get that rating. All right? We have to go out and it is a check on the EPC, but if you hand me a 5-year EPC and say, right, that's what my rating is and that's what I've got to do. However, what people don't realise is if you've got a 5-year-old EPC, the older the house is, the more it ages, the ratings will drop. So if I do an EPC, a draft EPC for you 5 years on, it's not going to be what it says on that piece of paper. It's going to be 2 or 3% less, because that's what happens when you do an EPC. Now, if you're going to try and get your EPC up to a C, I'm finding that sometimes it's absolutely crucial. It could be just that 1 little percent when I'm trying to shove you up to that golden C69 and I want it to happen so badly for you. It's got to be accurate. It's got to be accurate on the day, and the EPCs is what I see on the day, all right? So you cannot avoid us coming out and doing a new draft EPC. You cannot avoid it, all right? I also sometimes need to check the accuracy because I've seen 1 or 2 EPCs, and you saw one recently, didn't you, Dawn? And went, I don't like the look of this, Janine. And I went, no, neither do I actually. I'd better go out and have a look. So I need to establish when I do the assessment of what the rating is actually today, because that's what I'm basing it on, because they drop over time. All right. So we go out and we do the whole EPC, but we don't lodge it on the register. And then we take the calculations, gather all the data, take the photographs and everything, and then we just work it through the software, okay? Because I need to find out what is the most cost-effective way of you getting up there, all right? Because I'm telling you, every EPC will say floor insulation on it, every one. Floor insulation will give you 1% gain. So what is the point of spending £5 insulating the floor if it's going to give you 1%? I know this because we've done it, okay? So what we're trying to do is to talk to landlords, give you a readable report for consideration, and actually advise you about what things you don't necessarily need to do, what is essential that you need to do to get there, thus saving you money by spending your money in the right place. Okay? Don't spend it in the wrong place. All right? So we move on basically to, as I've said before, if you've got a fairly modern property, it won't be too difficult to get up there, but there are some difficult properties, particularly difficult ones we're finding. Obviously, pre First World War will be. Solid wall properties are difficult. But then I do tend to find that solid wall properties, they've generally got a decent gas central heating boiler in them, so not as bad as you think. If you've got a solid or system build home, now a system build example is what's on the right hand side, all right? The difference between solid wall and system build, if you don't know, is that property is made of concrete sections and they are notoriously difficult to heat and they come up very low on an EPC. Okay, so that will be more expensive to upgrade than a standard property. Rural locations, EPC doesn't like that either because anything that's off the gas grid will be down there, do a lot of rural work. So anything on oil or LPG, again, are going to be very difficult to upgrade. All electric heating, funnily enough, and that can be in rural, but actually it may also affect in towns and cities. Apartments tend to be all electric. Yeah? They're not always got a gas boiler. Now, if it's an all electric apartment, if it's on economy 7 with night storage heating, then it probably won't be too bad. All right? What I'm finding, and I meet landlords, sometimes the builders as well, or a landlord wants to improve their wrecked old their wrecked sort of like night storage heaters. They think, oh, they're a bit old-fashioned. Shall we put something else in? So they go, yeah, I'll buy the best out there. I'll go and buy myself a wall-mounted electric heater that has a radiant heater. I bang it on the wall. It's got a program. It's got a thermostat. I'll be fine. EPC doesn't recognise that. Please, please do not take your night storage heating out and remove that economy 7 on a dual heater, because you will not do yourself any favours. And then I come to do the EPC and the landlord says to me, but I've put these new heaters in. And I'm going, sorry, software doesn't recognise it. This is why it's essential you get us out first so we can tell you what to put in. We also give, I can give you guidance on what's called, it says HHRH, that stands for high heat retention heaters, all right? They look like that in the bottom right hand corner. Right, so that is what they look like. They're quite solid, they stand on feet, they've got blocks in the bottom, they're like a modern night storage heater. Those will bang the rating up. However, they're expensive, okay? A modern wall heater will cost you about £200 or £300, one of those will cost you about 800 plus. However, when I twiddle with the software, you might get away in a flat with one of them. In a house, you might get away with 2. All right? Because what people don't realise is that the EPC software that we work with is a national framework. All right? It's a national piece of software. We can't fiddle with it. We have to work with what the software gives us. And it doesn't always give us what you think it does. Okay? And please, please, at this moment in time, currently, don't even think about putting an electric boiler in. Yeah, I bet they're better. I bet they're more efficient. I bet they're cheaper. I can't put it through the software. You know, it will come. It will come. But changes in the software changes in the legislation take years to get through. So, you know, I do sometimes come into difficulty there when people say, well, I've got an electric boiler and my EPC rating's rubbish. I'm afraid it will be, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. So basically, there is an exemptions register which currently, I mean, it's scary, I know, and you're going to have to spend on your property, but at the moment, the exemptions register exists, and Dawn's very good at this. She knows more about the exemptions register than I do. So she can help landlords. If you have to prove that the minimum spend is going to be more than £3,500 in order to get an exemption, okay, which tends to apply to old properties and things out rurally and things like that. If you wait till 2026, that minimum spend's going up to 10 grand. Okay, I don't even know what the exemptions register will look like in 2026. Okay, so what I'm saying is, guys, think about it now, otherwise it's going to be really expensive. Okay. Let's just talk about what we actually. Oh no, where did I go there? Oh no, I've gone down. Ah! I've pressed the wrong one. There you go. I'm back. Okay, wrong button. Fingers. Okay. Here we go again. All right, let's talk about this then. It's not working again. I've messed it. I've done what somebody else did this morning. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the rest of the slide.
Yeah, right, okay. What do you want? Oh, we reckon it worked now. Oh. Yeah, okay, we've gone through there, that's fine. That's great, lovely, okay. Ha-ha, we're back, right. Okay, I need you to read my reports. They're quite basic. I don't say they're the best laid out thing on the planet, okay, but this is what the front of our reports look like. And this is an example of a 1915 terraced house, and it was a builder-stroke landlord who got in touch with me, because I find the savvy landlords will say, hang on, my tenant's coming out of my property in 2 months and I want to do some work to it. Come and give me some advice first. So basically what I do is I start at the bottom and I look at the cheapest way of getting your rating up, okay? The easy things, the light bulbs, the loft insulation, the insulation around the tank, the things that only cost you a few £100, okay? Now he said to me, okay, I know it's a solid wall property, however, I don't really, Johnny, want to spend out 10 grand to put solid wall insulation in. It's expensive. Can you work out another way of getting me that C? In this instance, this property was already a D57, so it's not actually that far away from the C69. So I worked out for him that he could choose to do the little cheap bits, and then he could put a solar panel on the roof, okay? Or, if he didn't want to do that, I worked out for him he could do the little bits, and then he could choose another boiler, and he could insulate the floor over the cellar. All right, and I'd still get him a C rating. However, the boiler, I said to him, was absolutely crucial which one he picked. Not all boilers are the same, all right? Some boilers are more efficient than others, and I was struggling to get him his golden C69 because all these boilers I was putting through the software and I was getting a D68. And we worked out by just choosing the boilers across the software that we could get him the golden C69 if we did certain boilers, and I gave him just an example of 2 or 3 there, and we got it up there, okay? Well, that's how we did it. So basically, I've got some advice to you. If you do choose to have a report done, a MEES report, okay, remain accurate to what we've given you. Don't be clever and think, oh, I don't want to do that, I want to do something else. Check first, if you decide to do something different, that it's going to work in the software. That's what I said to the builder there. I said, just before you put your credit card in at Homebase, right, at the boiler, where you're going to buy your boiler from, please tell me which model you're choosing, and I'll double check it through the software and make sure it still does the job. Okay. Wall and floor insulation. We've already been out, we've done the report. If you're putting wall and floor insulation in a property, we need to see vital evidence of it going in, all right, because we get audited. When I go and do the second visit, which is when you finish the work, I can see everything. I can see the loft, I can see the boiler, I can see the radiators, I can see what you put in and the controls, but I can't see what you've put there. I can't measure it, I can't prove it. If I can't prove it as an assessor, I have to discount it. That's a fact. We all work to the same rules. So basically, if you are doing wall insulation, if I come out a second time, I want to see the windowsills off before you put the windowsills on, so I can actually see what you have put in that wall and measure how thick it is. However, if I come out that second time, there'll be a third visit, so it might cost you a bit more. So send me accurate evidence. So that would be something that shows the photograph of the property, something that's a receipt of what you put in, something that's building sign off, something that's official, or even a headed piece of paper from the company that says we have put in every wall this insulation this thick, and that will appease my auditors, okay, because we are audited every 12 weeks, really ad hoc as an assessor. People don't always realise that. So finally, when you've finished, you ring me up and go, done all the work, Johnny, can you come back and give me that nice EPC with a C rating on? And I'll go, okay. So it will involve a minimum of 2 visits from us, and we stage it. We charge up front for the full, to do the draft and the full report. Then if we have to pop out, we charge a little bit more, and then we charge a little bit more again to complete the final EPC. And the EPC, hopefully it will pass the audit, and that will be lodged on the register with 10 years lifespan on it, okay? So that's how it works, guys. It's important that you take advice first, and if you want to know any more about what we do, I've got business cards, and also I must tell you that we've got an official list. If you're going to choose high heat retention heaters in an all electric property, you need to choose the ones on the software, because if you don't, we can't include it. And I've got a list in my folder there of 37 products you can choose from. So somebody should be happy somewhere, okay? Because otherwise I can't include it. So basically that winds up what I wanted to say to you, that we are out there and we're here to help you, okay? Don't assume, don't make guesses, because those guesses could be expensive, okay? Thank you.